Welcome to Promote, Profit, Publish. I'm your host, Juliette Clark, and today we are celebrating. This is our 300th episode. I can't even believe that I have done 300 podcasts. If you had asked me when I started this back in, I think it was 2018, I was a little hesitant. I'd done a podcast before, and I only did about, I think, 30 episodes because it was so much work. So I'm super excited today to celebrate not only the 300th episode, but to have Tom and Tracy Hazzard from Podetize on here, because without them, this never would have happened. And even better, they're going to talk about the new features they're doing, because they have literally using AI and new systems that they put into place that nobody else out there has. They have 10x'd my listeners. We have, for the past 6 months, gotten over 20,000 downloads per month, which is just incredible. So lots of goodies to give away today. I want to remind you guys to go over to the book club, www.breakthroughauthors.bookclub.com. You'll have to log into your Amazon account. It is an Amazon book club, but here's what makes us different. We not only highlight our authors, you have access to our authors. So if you have questions, if you want to find out more about what they do, how they do it, would they be a good power partner, whatever you want to know, they're all in the club and they're waiting to hear from you. So we will be highlighting all of their books as we go along. Also, ditch the 55% that you're paying with other publishers to the distributors. Get Breakthrough Author Magazine. You can grab a free subscription. It comes out monthly at breakthroughauthormagazine.com and find out tricks, tips, all sorts of things on how to put more money in your pocket from your book, selling your book. So really important. We're actually seeing a lot of big influencers out there do the same thing. So they're not just relying on royalties now. They're actually selling the books themselves as part of programs, products, and services that they do, or just selling the book on their site and keeping that 55% in their pocket. So today's guest is Tom and Tracy Hazzard, and Tracy Hazzard is a seasoned media expert with over 2,600 interviews from articles in Authority Magazine, BuzzFeed, and Her Inc. magazine column, and from her multiple top-ranked videocasts and podcasts like The Binge Factor and Feed Your Brand, one of CIO's top 26 entrepreneur top podcasts. Tracy brings diverse views from what works and what doesn't work in marketing, branding, and media, from thought leaders and industry icons redefining success around the globe. Tracy's unique gift to the podcasting, marketing, and branding world is being able to identify that unique bingeable factor, the thing that makes people come back again and again and listen actively as raving fans and buying everything you have to sell. Her husband, Tom, is a co-host, multiple top-ranked podcasts with over 2,000 episodes combined, Feed Your Brand in CIO's top 26 entrepreneur podcasts, product launch hazards for inventors and e-sellers, and WTFFF question mark explanation 3D printing. The 3D Start Point featured as an exclusive live podcast at SXSW. And he starts a new podcast every year to put himself into the shoes of his clients, and is just launching a show called The Next Little Thing. So welcome, Tom and Tracy. I am so excited to have you guys here today. I would not be on my 300th podcast without you. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
We are so proud of you, Juliette. Star student and elite podcaster. Because when you tip over 300, that is elite territory.
I know. I'm excited. I think I told you guys, my new coach just pointed that out to me, and I was like, I have no idea. I just jump on and record and upload it, and that's it every week. So you two recently switch titles within your company, which I know you live in the same house, and the title probably means nothing, but
titles are free. That. I had a boss who once said, yeah, he's like, salary is costly, but titles are free. What would you like? Yeah. We really needed to redefine roles, right? So I had been the CEO since we started, right? Pretty much. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Since 2018, at least. You've
Yeah,
been the
2018
CEO.
at least. And Tom was the CTO, which is Chief Technology Officer. And that served us really well until the shift has happened in the last year and a half for us well, it really started shifting in 2018 when we incorporated AI, but it really shifted in the last 18 months in which we are taking what we've been doing on AI in the back end and moving it to the front, to the client facing side of things. And so we decided that this needed a role shift. So I'm the executive director of AI strategy, and Tom is now the CEO.
That's very exciting. So tell us a little bit. You guys are so far ahead of the curve on AI and podcasting. Like, I dropped a number the other day to a fellow podcaster about how many downloads I'm getting with AI. And she's like, who are you with? I don't get anywhere near that. And I just felt really good about it because, yeah, I kind of wanted to shove it in her face, but that's another story. Really, I'm not that kind of person, but yeah, I am. Okay.
So, I mean, here's the thing. It's not all AI. That's the difference. If someone were just doing their whole entire podcast and everything that they do utilizing AI, it wouldn't work. And it wouldn't work because there's a good human detector out there in the system, right? They're still detecting whether or not there's human. On Spotify, I would say they've been shown that recently there was some numbers came out with like crazy numbers, like 15% of music, not even podcast, is not really generated by human beings right now. And most of that is happening in their most popular genres, which are like meditation spaces and stuff like that. So it's, and so that says a lot that some of the platforms aren't doing a great job of monitoring it, but the ones that really are, like Apple just changed their algorithm to make sure there's actually a human being on the other side on your subscriber level. So the bot level of sensitivity is still really out there. And your system and what you're doing with us that we helped you set up and start is a combination of using AI for the best things that it can do and using humans and your wonderful authority and voice and direction and perspective on your marketplace, of which you're the only you, right? Yeah, you're uniquely you. That is coming across.
Yeah. Amazon recently, for those of you who are writing a book, Amazon now asks when I upload the Kindles, is this AI generated or does a person write it? So, and I'm sure they've gotten a lot of really bad AI books. I mean, you and I saw one that was awful.
I've seen some really bad human books, let alone AI ones, but the AI ones are really bad. Yeah, I mean, I think what a shame that Amazon is asking you to tell them instead of knowing. Like, they should know already.
Yeah, no, they should. And what's really crazy about it is I'll go back and ask my author and they'll say, you know what, I used a little on this one section, but most of the time they'll say, I went back and rewrote it because it didn't sound like me. So it's definitely a way to start. So Tom, as the new CEO of the company, what are you doing in the podcast? What are you guys doing differently than most of the people out there, most of the other podcast platforms?
That's a great question. You know what? Our big focus this year is raising awareness of a brand new portion of our SaaS service, our done sort of do-it-yourself podcast hosting platform that actually advertises your show to new potential listeners. No other hosting platform has ever done that. And we have been working for years on a way to do that, to help our podcasters get more listeners. Because right now, otherwise, it's really up to them. It's all on the podcast host to share it on social media, raise awareness. If you have guests, to try to incentivize that guest to share your show with their followers on social. And there's only so much reach you have or your guest has. So how do we raise awareness for your show with new people? We found a way to advertise that on mobile phone apps, and it's actually working to generate meaningful traffic to the podcast from people that didn't know about your show yet.
Yeah. And are you guys doing that through ads on other people's show? Is that the understanding I have from it?
There's a few different things we're doing. The first one and the most exciting one, honestly, is that we are putting ads of clips from the podcast show, along with a visual, an image, for the identity of that show in mobile phone apps. These are free mobile phone apps that people are using every day. And in order to use the app, they have to watch an ad once in a while. So it plays a clip from your podcast. When people click, it takes them to wherever the podcaster wants them to go. Usually that's their podcast website. But if you're a podcaster that really doesn't have your own website, it can send them to your show on Apple or Spotify or whatever app you want them to. But the whole idea is we send them where they can listen to an entire episode, try out more of it, and then subscribe, of course.
See, I love that. Back probably 6-9 months ago, I was listening to a show where I heard a full ad. I don't think it's what you guys were doing, but actually a paid ad for another show on there. And it was a show on national security. And I was like, wait, why would I want that? Why would I want to listen to that? So this sounds like it's a little different than that.
It is different than that. And, it takes putting an awful lot of ads every month, tens of thousands of ads for each show in these mobile apps to generate enough clicks to be meaningful. A typical show is actually getting about 400 to 500 clicks every month of new potential listeners to their show. And then month over month, we're seeing an increase in listenership, which is really the whole point. Now, there are other things we're also doing with this program to advertise your show on other podcasts that might have similar audiences, things like that come along with this paid advertising program. You got a couple other different benefits for free where we certainly are tapping into opportunities to advertise shows on, other podcasts that have a similar audience. But this advertising program that's really a push advertising to people that definitely don't know who you are and hadn't heard of your show to raise awareness of it. That's really what this program is designed to do. How do people get found by new potential listeners who didn't know them? This is now a really significant way we're doing that.
The number one thing we found, Juliet, was that so many people need new listeners, right? Like every podcast host, this is the number one problem. They need new listeners, people who don't know them yet. And when you try advertising on social media, the media types don't match. When you try advertising on video and podcast audiences are not necessarily the same thing. So where can you get someone who's using their phone every day, likely to use a audio app as well? Like all of those things are something that might be occurring. And so that's why it's a little bit more synergistic just in modality type. And that's why it's working right now. And that's what we're seeing. Our goal is to use our AI systems and the way that we do it to tighten it up. But the receiving end right now, the apps don't allow that. They don't allow us to dial in. We could tell them, hey, this show would be perfect if it was a book directory app or any kind of reading rating list. And so it's really interesting that they can't accept that right now, but we're working towards that.
Was that for me, Tom? So Tracy, I think there's a big misconception about AI that, okay, I'm going to use it to do my social media, but people don't understand that you're actually training it in the process. So can you explain a little bit about that? Because I think that is a big misconception for marketing people is they're like, oh, look, it's doing my social media posts, but is it really doing you?
It's not. I mean, for the most part, most AIs, if you're going into a separated system, okay, and you're typing in, hey, generate me a social media post for LinkedIn using this data, great. It's going to do that in isolation. Unless you are organizing your AI chats into a logical way where you're continually using it in the same category under the same thing, and you want it to learn from the previous, unless you're actively doing that, most of the AI systems you use wipes away what it learned before and doesn't continue going forward with it. So it's just responding to this new request in isolation. The other issue is there's a lot of AI podcasting platforms out there that you can try, and they'll like, oh, we'll generate descriptions for your show and everything. But it has no ability to, because they're so afraid to violate your copyright that they store no information on you. So when you put in your episode and then it gives you back your description, it actually deletes everything and it doesn't save it. It moves on. Now, there are some generalized learnings that are happening across everybody's show, but your show isn't everybody's show. And what happens is that all the titling, all the descriptions start to get homogenized and everyone sounds the same. So I can literally, because I know this well enough, I can go out there and go, this person's using this AI and this person's using that AI. And I know which ones are using it because everybody's show description sounds the same. You don't have any clue of that because you're doing it in isolation and you think you're getting something that saved you a ton of time, and it did, but you're sacrificing your originality in that. So in order to maintain originality, you have to learn how to organize and speak to the AI and keep control of it in a very specific way. Or like, that's exactly what we're building. Like, that's the purpose of it. If you use a platform where it's in the process flow of it, there's a chance you may also get that kind of original model.
Yeah. And I think the example you mentioned when I was taking your class was it'll say in this podcast every single time, or on this podcast. And as I was using ChatGPT, I noticed it would say on this podcast, and I'd be like, oh, no, I need to wipe that part out and rewrite it. So a lot of times I will use it to write an idea, and then I'll go back in and rewrite it. It's just giving me that initial, like, I don't know how to organize this. So it organizes it for me, and then I go in and rewrite, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, part of it is our prompts. When we develop a prompt for it, because we're doing it over in ChatGPT or over in Google Bard, and we're doing it in a separated system that's not in flow with our podcast already, or in writing articles or writing descriptions for Amazon, we tend to tell it what we want it for. And because we tell it what we want it for, it's going to spit out that kind of information. So because we say, I'm asking for a podcast description, it's going to say in this podcast, because that's sort of like, think about, English 101. What did our teachers tell us way back when we were kids? When you're writing a description, you say, in this book, I learned this, right? Like, so it's doing overly proper English things that maybe doesn't sound like us and isn't the way that we want to have a conversation with our audience, especially ones who know that they're already in a podcast app. So it doesn't put it in context for us. And so we keep providing that. And in providing that, we're actually making it say stuff like that. And so if you delete that, if you don't say that it's for that, you say it's for this audience, it's a description for this audience, so that they will click and read and listen and do. You're giving them action that it's taking, but not saying it's a podcast episode description that you're creating. Don't tell it what it's creating.
Okay.
I know that sounds counterintuitive, but that's what you do.
It does. And I always, when I go in, I give it the tone, because I have sort of a sassy, smart alecky tone. So I tell it every single time. But I see what you're saying about the learning and the muddling of it, because I remember going in and showing Kevin Jones, saying, tell me about Kevin Jones' book. And then I went in and said, and tell me about my podcast. And it actually mixed. It was very funny. It mixed Kevin and I together, first of all. But second of all, Kevin is a stone cold liberal, and I'm a little bit independent to conservative. And it had really great things to say about him and not so great things to say about me. So I think it was a little biased too.
It's mixing things together, and it's trying, it wants to please you, right? Like, this is the thing. It wants to make you happy. And if it thinks that that's what you're going to respond to because of what it learned about you, then it will give you more of that, and it will give you the polar opposite when you try to do the opposite of it. It thinks that you want the negative. And so it's purposely giving you what it believes you want. And that's kind of hard. And that's why we have to keep things separated. And most of the AI tools do not. They merge everything together. And most of us are too lazy to create all separate individual chats on everything, because you have to give it new information and give it more stuff, and the Sims times the same stuff again. It's more work. That's why it's not always working for us.
Yeah, I always give it new stuff. It sounds like if it's trying to please us, ladies, maybe if you're single, we can develop an AI pleaser man in there as well.
I think I just read that of all the new apps that are in the chat GPT store, that over 60% of them have something to do with relationships. So I think it's being done out there. If you would like a chatbot to help you find a relationship, be your relationship, I think it already exists.
But isn't there a whole movie about it being your relationship?
Yeah.
The Johnny
I don't
Cash
recommend
guy was
it.
in it. Yeah, there you go. There you go. So Tom, tell us a little bit more about how you guys are implementing the AI besides that advertising, because you have upcoming things that are really incredible.
Well, really, what we're doing with AI is creating more services built into our platform for DIY customers. Okay. To, yes, auto title episodes, create descriptions, generate transcripts for them, generate images are coming. That's a lot more complicated, but there was something beyond the descriptions. Now I forget.
Social posts.
Yeah. And social posts. Right. So we're, things that people would have to do themselves, or they're maybe going out and using ChatGPT or something like that for generating them on their own, but they're still having to do all the work, right? And our purpose is to automate that, and just you upload your episode audio and then it generates it all for you. That's where we're going. We're not completely there today, but we're getting there quickly.
That's awesome. Tracy, the image part, you did a demo of your mother. Your mother is an artist. You did a demo of your mother's artwork. One of our authors, Samantha Kakawa, I can never say her name right, Finding Beauty in Your Broken Pieces, actually used ChatGPT to create the image for her cover. And it wasn't in 300 DPI, so we couldn't use it as the actual cover. But when she gave it to the designer, the graphic designer, to create the cover, he said that ChatGPT used over 100 different techniques, and he had a really hard time recreating. From your mother's experience, you put your mother's artwork in, and how did that work out?
So I put in the exact description that she had on her. You know how, like, if you've got your painting in a gallery, you might have a description below it of what it is. And then the materials, so that it would mimic the type of abstract collage art that she created. And then the color base that I wanted it to, so that I was trying to get it to come somewhere close to hers, but I didn't give it the image to look at. And so that's how I did it at the time. And I think the technology, even in this, I think I did that like 8 months ago or something, that even the technology has come far way since then. So I think it's even better now, but it came very close. But what it lacked was the sort of depth of feeling that her painting would evoke, right? Because it was concentrating on perfect balance and, perfect perspective and some of those things that it learned artists are supposed to do, but not real artists don't always do. And real artists break the rules, and it's in breaking the rules that they create an emotional connection to their art, right? And so that's really where it just the difference. So you can always tell the difference between a human created one and a bot created one. Sometimes it's harder than others to tell the difference, especially when you're looking at it online and not in print. But the reality is that it's come so far in AI generation that there's a really good place for it. And here's what we found. Over the years, we bought about 50,000 copyrighted images. So, you buy them from the royalty-free sites, and so you have a license right to use them for podcasts. And we've done this for our clients. So we buy them for their blogs, we buy them for their episode art, we buy them for their cover art. And over the years, we bought 50,000 images. On a daily basis, we are being trolled, and our clients are being trolled by copyright hounds who claim you didn't put the copyright properly in your thing, and you're not licensed to use this image. We don't see that you purchased this. And it makes us go through all these hoops and a big pain for us to say, nope, here is the receipt for it. We do have it. We did pay for it. We owned it. And this site is authorized for it. And we have to go through that. And it happens daily all the time, to the point that the thousands of photographers and thousands of artists that we supported over buying 50,000 of those royalty free, I'm not going to do it anymore. I'd rather AI generate and not have to answer to these trolls that are annoying and upsetting our clients and our business. So what has happened is these photographers, in trying to protect their right, actually made it so that I will not buy stock art anymore.
Oh, wow. And we use quite a bit of stock art as well. We haven't had that happen, but we always get the copyright trolls over our name. They claim they have our name. And yeah, they don't.
No, this is really a pretty new practice. It's been increasing over the last 6 months, but it's gotten to the point where these artists must sign up with one of these services that does a reverse Google image search and finds every website where their images might exist. And I don't even think this company is doing any research to try to figure out if it's properly licensed. They're putting the onus on the website owner, sending them a demand letter saying, you need to prove that you license this, or else you're going to have to pay us $1,000, and it's going to keep going up month after month, and it's, copyright is a serious thing, and I'm all for it. But these are predators that are trying to not only just make money, people that whether they bought it or not, if they can't prove they bought it, they're going to make you pay them to make them go away. And that's really unfortunate. I mean, the interesting thing I also want to mention, Tracy, your experience with your mom's art, that's a little different situation where you're actually trying to generate something that looks like fine art, or is actually fine. Well, I don't know if it's AI generated. I don't know if I would call it fine art, but looks like fine art. And the reality of what we're doing in podcasting, in creating an episode image that's unique for the episode related to what was discussed in the episode, that's a very different level of image creation that's not as heavy a lift, and I think is completely appropriate for AI to do. And given now the hassles that all of these different copyright enforcing companies are trying to do to really, I would say, dig for gold from all the websites that have, and certainly in our case, legitimately licensed all these 50,000 images over 7 years. It's a hassle we don't want to deal with. So we're just going to go a completely different direction and avoid the problem going forward, because it takes a lot of time and energy on our part to respond to those claims,
So this is how an industry makes the self-fulfilling prophecy of AI destroying it possible, by not collaborating, by complaining.
Yeah.
And by trolling the people who have been supporting you for years.
No, I agree with that. And I think there's legitimate concern for authors and artists and musicians to be worried about their copyrights being violated. We just had a young woman came to us. She self-published her book, and it hasn't even released yet, and somebody has republished it, and we can't figure out how they got the material. And I would imagine there's some leakage someplace that happened with her book, and they copied it, and she's an amateur, first-time book. She didn't have much money. She never copyrighted it. So she's kind of in big trouble. That's why that
she shouldn't be.
She
shouldn't be, because copyright is inherent in the moment that you publish. But if they did it pre-publishing, then she's in trouble.
She might be in trouble. But also, too, when I file a copyright for a book, it's in effect the minute I do it. But in order for them to enforce the copyright, let's see, like I just asked you before we got on, hey, Tracy, can I use something for something I'm doing that you have? You gave me permission. With a book, if I violated and I used it and you came after me, I would have to produce that certificate in order to have a valid claim. So she doesn't have a valid claim at this point.
Right. She has to have a copyright, but it goes back. It doesn't matter the date you filed. It does go back to the date that it was published, because your copyright should be in there. It's just you're now claiming the stated right of it, and that's an additional. But you can't enforce anything without the stated right, without it being documented, and that's an issue. Now, patents are different, and other, trademarks are different.
Just for the record here, none of us on this podcast are copyright attorneys.
Yes.
Let's just say for the record.
Yes.
However, I definitely have the belief, just from experience over the years, that in order to assert a copyright and go into any sort of court to try to enforce it, you've got to have a filed copyright. But I do believe there is a way it is possible to prove you are the original author of the work, even and you created it before that other person stole it from you and published it and put it off as their own. I don't think copyright is just strictly a first to file situation.
It's not like patents.
Yeah.
So here's the thing, Juliet, that I think is happening, and people don't understand this. And this is what my caution to your audience is. If you are using any free tool to do something, let's say you used a free tool to write your book, just like there are free tools to publish a podcast. And Tom and I are very against those free recording tools, because in the fine print, they have to make money to keep offering that tool to you. In the fine print, they have the right to use your content. Yes. They might even have the right ownership of it. They might even already be licensing it to an AI, large language model. And that's how it got in, because you used a free tool to assemble your book, to organize it, or one of the vendors you used a free tool instead of a paid tool. makes a really big difference here. And where we're talking about somebody didn't purposefully leak it and sell it. It probably leaked out in a way like that you're unaware of.
Exactly. And you guys, I'm going to give you an example, and Tracy's aware of this example. I used to have a product that I did, and I used someone else's platform to build it. And when Tracy and I were working together, we started noticing that she was taking our work product and using it to advertise, or using it on her landing pages and using it as a model inside. And she issued new, what do you call them at the beginning when you
Terms
click?
and conditions.
Terms and conditions. She had issued new terms and conditions that said anything done on her platform became her material. And so we stopped building that product, because technically that was sort of an IP theft on her part, but it was a legal IP theft since you checked. Yes. It almost reminds me, do you guys remember the South Park episode with Apple terms and conditions? And how in the terms and conditions, it said that they can sew your mouth to another terms and conditions customer. And so they were trying to get out of it, but they were all tied to each other, their mouths on the other person's butt. And they were trying to,
yeah,
probably bad example, but that's what comes to mind most. I died laughing when I saw that, because nobody ever reads them.
Right. And this is the thing, is like a lot of those, it's more often a free tool is doing something like that, because they have to make money to offer that thing for free. So they're using your information, they're advertising on your stuff, like whatever that might be, their way that they're predominantly making money. And they're always looking at new ways to make money. So they'll update their terms and conditions. And if you didn't read it, you don't understand that that's what happened to your stuff. And you did agree to it. You didn't know you were agreeing to it. But I think it's more risky for those of us who use contractors who don't understand whether or not they're doing that. And because, lots of the people on Fiverr and other things are barely making enough money. So they're definitely probably not licensing their software properly.
You're probably right on that. So Tom, those people who are thinking about, we're going to wrap this up. They've been thinking about a podcast, and they just found out that Tom and Tracy have a platform where they can use AI with their DIY. Where do we find you and get in contact? Because this may be the time that they decide to do this.
Well, if they just are wanting to self-publish a podcast, create their own show and publish it themselves, they don't even need to make an appointment. They just go to podetize.com and then sign up for a hosting subscription. And that's in the top menu, podcast hosting. It's pretty straightforward. If they are looking for support in order to launch that show, have, a lot of the laundry list of things that you need to create done for them. So really all they need to focus on is recording their unique message to the world, uploading it, and be done. Then on podetize.com homepage, about 2/3 of the way down, is a booking calendar where they can book a call with me or another member of our staff to, ask a few key questions, learn what kind of support they're looking for, and then share how they can get that support. So couple options there, but our client portal is constantly being updated. Auto generation of transcripts is out now, and you can upload your MP3 file, push a button, and boom, you have your transcript. And that's like the first step in the AI generates that, and then that's the first step of other things that will happen as we go over the course of 2024. But it's really straightforward. And the only other thing I guess I want to mention to any potential podcasters or existing podcasters out there, if you want to be found by more of your ideal listeners, reach out to us, because we have this new program we talked about earlier that advertises your show. But more also, I almost said more importantly, but not really more. They're both great benefits. Is we provide a lot of support as a company to the podcasters that are working with us, including having a support phone number in the footer of every page of our website. No other podcast hosting company has that. And we have a weekly client coaching call also. That's a great community to help move all of our podcasters forward to reach their goals. So just be aware about that. As you're considering what companies to work with to bring your message to the world. And I think you know, anybody listening to this would probably prefer to have some support, to be able to call out and ask some questions when they need it, and not have to just send an email and hope to get an answer back in a few days.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm going to plug these guys. I didn't get to 300 episodes without support. I'm a big whiner. I complain all the time. They put up with it. But
that's not true.
But most of the part that's really helpful is they do all that transcription, all the video, my YouTube channel. Tracy and I are working on a little project together. I had to ask how to get into my website. That's how much they do for me. I didn't know where to go, what to do, my login. I think they did it on purpose because they knew that I'm a kind of a tech idiot, but
I just re-triggered it, guys. For those of you on the tech side, I just re-triggered it it was hers. I can't actually see it, but
shocked how much they do and how much it takes off your plate and allows you to create really good content without a whole lot of work on your part. So you guys, thank you so much for your support. Thank you for being on today and sharing everything you do. And I hope
congratulations. But you know, we are very, very proud of you. And thank you for being such a big supporter of us as well.
Oh, thank you. All right. I'll talk to you guys soon.